Hello, everybody. This is Buddy in Midland. I got a comment on my YouTube channel this morning about a video I did called "Two Secret Police Are Now Dead," and there it is right there. And the guy says, "I want to know more about this," and so I wrote a longer message and telling what happened, and I'm gonna read that to you in a minute, and then we're gonna talk about the timing of them two dying. They died within 2 months of each other, and and what else was going on, because it looks like a cover-up was going on during that time. And so here's Sergeant Mike Joe Naylor. He is a Midland County Deputy Sheriff that died in the line of duty on October 9th, 2014. And we're going to see here in a minute, he was the second person seen arriving at my house. He wasn't identified until 6 years later, and that was only because I offered a reward. This is Chad Simpson right there. He Midland K-9 police officer, and he was seen inside my home on the secret police pictures. He also wasn't identified, until here, I'm going to stop that. He also wasn't identified until when Naylor was by the private investigator. His name also wasn't on the police report. So let me just dive in. I'm answering the question about, the two secret police that are now dead. And starting with Mike Naylor. The second law enforcement officer seen on camera arriving at my home after I was ambushed and shot was the late Midland Sheriff Deputy Mike Naylor. And his name was omitted from the police report for an unknown reason, but it's suspected that he was in the underground homes when I was shot. It's believed there's one in the backyard, based on Google Maps and other recorded testimonies, such as Sheriff candidate Joe Lozano. He wasn't identified until 2018, 6 years after the murder attempt, and that only happened because I saved up disability money and offered a reward to anybody that could identify who I called the secret police, those that were caught on camera, and I didn't have a report telling me who they were. Naylor was following the former Martin County Sheriff, John Woodward, and I was told they were friends. Nobody has ever explained why a sheriff from another county was at my home minutes after a murder attempt. Woodward was recently convicted of another felony. And I believe I got a 1-minute video that shows that here on 10/42, January 28th, I'm seen crawling out on my hands and knees. I've been shot by surprise after falling to the ground. I found that my phone lines had been cut, so I had no communications. They tried to murder me. That was cold-blooded murder. And they come to my home. Here I am crawling out. Watch my headlights. This is interesting. Oh, see, somebody turned them off. So, like they were sitting in the car, But anyways, at 11:01 p.m., former Martin County Sheriff John Woodward and the late Midland County Sheriff Deputy Mike Naylor were seen arriving 19 minutes after I left. It took 6 years and $2,000 reward to get them identified. They were not dispatched. The names were not on the police report. The question has been asked if one of them was the shooter, the AKA would-be killer. Okay, so this is from my security camera 19 minutes after I had crawled out. Now keep in mind, they wasn't on the police report, so they wasn't dispatched. They just magically showed up at the home where I was ambushed and shot, which is by somebody under my home. And that makes it a capital attempted murder. And you're going to see them here. And that second car right there was identified as Midland Sheriff Deputy Mike Naylor, now the late Midland Sheriff Deputy Mike Naylor. Okay, 6 years I had that video before we knew who that was. I was also told that Naylor was married to a woman from Hobbs, New Mexico, which is my hometown. Interestingly, the other secret police that is no longer alive, who's Chad Simpson, is from Hobbs too. I had noticed that 95% of my lifelong and hometown friends have not supported me after I survived this home invasion and murder attempt and have been living under the threat of death as if they have information about these crimes. Mike Naylor, Sheriff Deputy Mike Naylor, was killed in the line of duty on October 9, 2014 while serving a warrant, or so it was said. The news reported that the gun that shot him had been reported stolen. I don't know if I have that up. No, but there's a news story on that. Midland Reporter Telegram. Okay. And so the question has been asked if Naylor was going to snitch on the other secret police and they were the ones that had killed him. $1 million underground homes hosting parties for very important people at international oil shows seems like a good motive for murder. Okay. And, a lot of people said that Naylor was a good guy, and here he's at my house and he's not on the police report. Something extremely fit, takes 6 years to get him identified. Now he's dead with a stolen gun, and then the guy that confessed, or whatever, I guess they called it confessed, he was up against a half dozen police that were going to testify against him. If he tried to fight that, he'd get the death penalty. And I think he knew that. He was probably told, you're going to get the death penalty. We don't care if you killed him or not, I don't know that, but I'm just saying that, we need to look at the possibility that Mike Naylor might have been murdered by the other secret police because of the $1 million underground homes. So the second person that is no longer alive, secret police, Midland K-9 police officer Chad Simpson. We'll talk about him for a minute. On January 29, 2012, the log files of my bedroom security camera showed that an attempt was made to disable the camera, at 3:16 a.m. Remember, I called that at 10:42 p.m., okay? But they made a mistake and accidentally started it working. This was the reason that I would later find pictures of the secret police inside my home on the night that I was ambushed and shot. And I have the log files showing that, actually that camera wasn't running, and when they rebooted my computer to stop the camera, they started it and didn't know it. And that was the only reason I got pictures of the secret police and where we're at today. It'd be a whole different story because they were hiding the police report. One of those officers was seen wearing a Midland K-9 police jacket, but he wasn't identified until May 2018. That was when Empire Private Investigations collected the reward money and identified all 11 of the secret police. That was 6 years after being caught on camera covering up a home invasion and murder attempt. Just imagine what I'm telling you, and there's not a news story in the nation. That is the level of cover-up that's going on here, In 2019, it was found out there was a police report all along that had been illegally withheld from me and my lawyers, and it showed that Chad Simpson's name had been omitted from it along with 5 other law enforcement officers. 6 of the 11 law enforcement officers seen on camera and identified by the private investigator were not listed on this report. That would be one reason for them to hide it, okay? Now, keep in mind that that's not an accident. One person, they might be able to go, oh, yeah, we must have forgot. Or 2 people, oh, we forgot, But a half a dozen, that's called omission. That's a crime in itself. Falsifying a government record, a police report on purpose. And not to mention hiding it for 7 years in a murder attempt. On October 29, 2014, 5 weeks before this alleged murder-suicide, I sent Chad's picture along with the other secret police to Mayor Morales and most of the city council, and I asked them, can you confirm if any of these people are or were Midland police officers? The mayor, Morales, and city council, former city council, of course, ignored my question, and now some people are asking if Sandra Simpson would be alive today if they had answered that. I think it's a fair question. I'm guessing they were trying to keep secret the $1 million underground homes where the oil show parties were held, but it does make sense that anybody involved in capital attempted murder, Chad Simpson, would be a danger to others. So, the question, did they intentionally neglect their duty that resulted in the death of Sandra Simpson? That's a fair question to ask the mayor and city council. Are these police or not? Because they were inside my home after I was ambushed and shot, and they chose not to answer the question, and then that resulted in Sandra being murdered. On December 13, 2014, 2 days before this alleged murder-suicide, I posted Chad's secret police picture to my Facebook, not knowing who it was, along with a story that I named Rape and Murder. This story was about the young girl that I was told about being murdered at the 2010 oil show party near my home, which supposedly had high-level police there. I also emailed that story to Governor Rick Perry, then Attorney General Greg Abbott, and the Texas Rangers on the day of the alleged murder-suicide. The question had been asked if Chad was at those parties, okay? And so I have copies of this in video. I have a video called Rape and Murder that's had 40,000 views on my YouTube channel or more, and one of my top viewed videos, and it shows, the email to the governor and all that. And then I have another video, 2010 oil show party murder, talks about that. It's believed that happened in the underground home in my backyard. You know, that murder of that little girl. She refused to prostitute. My friend was there, was afraid to report it, and told me high-level police were at the party. Maybe Chad was one of them. On December 15, 2014, Chad Simpson was alleged to have murdered his wife and killed himself at his home on Crenshaw Street. This happened just 2 months after the secret police Naylor died. Neither of them were identified as being at my home until May 2018. Keep that in mind, 4 years later, by Empire Private Investigations. My PI told me that he found a witness that stated Chad told him that he was at my home. This person may have more information, since it's clear the secret police were here covertly to cover up a failed murder, and evidently that guy was a friend of Chad Simpson's. Okay, this is important new news that nobody knows about. A comment was later left on my YouTube channel that said, I lived a couple of houses over the night it happened, Simpson's alleged murder-suicide. I was coming home from out of town and arrived the police and SWAT, I believe in my yard and on the roof of my house. From my understanding that night, there was a suspect on the run. Now I don't know much about what went on. I just remember hearing that they were looking for a person that fled the scene. Okay. And so I'm going to show you that message here in a minute. I knew people in Chad's family since he was from my hometown, and Chad's aunt Annette Mobley told me, I know he murdered his wife and left those precious babies as orphans. She was adamant that Chad wasn't one of the secret police in my home, as they were still secret back then, but she wasn't going to ask the police to identify them either. And that throws up red flags, doesn't it? She hatefully told me, call Nancy Grace, I'm not going to help you. You know, so she's wanting, she's wanting Chad's name cleared. How dare you say Chad was in your house? You know, he wasn't in your house. Well, I'm going, well, tell the police to identify who was in my house. I ain't going to help you, you know. I mean, ain't that weird? I think that Annette Mobley knows something, and that's some of them people from Hobbs I was telling you about. In 2016, I got a private message from a Jeff Milford that threatened to sue me if I didn't stop talking about Chad Simpson, so he might have information on what really happened to Chad and or the capital attempted murder in my life. So that's a lead for law enforcement, maybe because there's got to be a reason that Jeff Milford is trying to silence the crime victim, you know. And, you know, I'm the crippled crime victim, you know. On minding my own business, criminals broke in my home, shot me by surprise. Once again, the question had been asked if Chad Simpson was going to snitch on the other secret police, which would expose the $1 million underground homes and infamous wild parties, so he was silenced by them. There were other events happening in this time frame which indicated a cover-up was going on. Somebody called in a disconnect on the mystery coax cable going underground behind my home around September 2014. I'm going to show you that here in a minute. I got a video on that too. A live tree was removed behind the Home Depot store in my house sometime between 10/2/14 and 7/7/15. And I've got an updated time frame on that. Based on another video. I know this because of Google Earth and a video that I made and posted in July 2015. This tree sat next to side-by-side manholes, and I had contacted the police about it because I suspected one of them was a tunnel entrance. The city accidentally, see I have it in quotation marks, deleted all permit records in the 2014-2015 timeframe per Julia Weidman, who spoke with James Rawls with the city of Midland. She was asking for the records for the storm shelter, bunkers, basements, etc. And she drove from Fort Worth to speak with James Rawls. I've got that email I'm going to show you that she wrote me telling me how he gleefully told her how all the records were accidentally deleted. So the city of Midland doesn't know what's underground here in Midland, you know, and that once again, the press has hidden that from the public, you know, and wasn't that a convenient accidental deletion? Mystery doctor in green Jaguar seen in front of my home on 6/29/14. And now remember that the ex-wife had told me with 100% sincerity, the secret is a group of doctors are killing people for profit. And then I take this picture of what looked like a doctor in a green Jaguar in front of my home. Actually, I think it was in the home next door that had the suspected tunnel entrance in the backyard. And it says, some people have said this guy looks like Dr. Gattiselli. And he was the doctor that was murdered in Odessa in June 2015. I've got a screenshot I'm going to show you on that too. And so the question is Dr. Gattiselli's murder connected back to the underground facilities, the murder to my life, murder last summer, murder little girl at the old show party, you know, the secret police and all the other crimes. Okay? And then also around that same time frame, in 2014, the ruling for the protective order hearing against me came in, which was unbelievable to myself and my attorneys, you know. And, you know, and you know, here she was. I was married 3 months. Right, and filed divorce 5 days before I'm shot. She's alleged to be involved in the shooting. I hadn't seen or talked to her in a year and a half. She lived 100 miles away in Lubbock and files a protective order on me. I mean, most people just think that is bizarre. Why do you need a protective order on somebody who lives 100 miles away you hadn't talked to in a year and a half, you know? And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to show you here what happened, and I have a screenshot on this. But anyway, I had to cash my 401k out and file an appeal. $42,000 I paid that attorney, you know. And here I'm the crime victim under attack inside my own home, you know. And but 2 years later, the appeals court upheld the ruling. It submitted to the Supreme Court. They denied it, and I ended up losing my right to own guns for life when I'd never had a felony. I wasn't charged with a crime, and I was actually the victim of a home invasion and a capital attempted murder, where it looks like it was some corrupt police that shot me, and the ex-wife was the one alleged to be involved in the shooting, and then one of the ones that testified in that hearing, you know, that caused all this, Rosa Rodriguez, you know, was one of the ones that suspected, was one of the secret police identified by the private investigator. So I'm going to go over all that evidence. There's even more than that, but I want to show you that. First thing on my Facebook post this morning, I want to show you this. And I randomly opened up my Bible yesterday to the scripture, and here's what I read: do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. And I come here: let every soul be subject to the governor and authorities. From there, no authority except from God, and the authorities exist are appointed by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authority resists the ordinance of God, and those who resist will bring judgment on themselves. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to evil. Do you want to be unafraid of the authority? Do what is good, and you will have praise from the same. For he is God's minister to you for good. But if you do evil, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain, for he is God's minister and avenger. And that is talking about the police, and I'm a lifelong supporter of law enforcement, you know, and as I said earlier, I've never had a felony. You know, the problem here is it looks like we have some corrupt police that were involved in the capital murder attempt on life, and that would make them the top suspects for the suspected capital murder, the last homeowner, the little girl at the old show party, etc. You know, and that's a serious allegation. So I mean, I think we need to seriously be looking at it, because you know, if they're breaking my home and shoot me, then you know what's stopping them from breaking your home, shooting you? You know, and nobody can cover up a murder as well as police that are there, you know, that we're trusting to gather evidence and tell the truth. And so this is back to the timestamp picture of Woodward and Naylor. Nobody's ever explained why a sheriff from a different county was the first one to arrive at my house minutes after I'm ambushed and shot, you know, and it's suspected that Woodward was under my home, as was Naylor. Okay. And, you know, and also Naylor, I think it's important here is that, you know, Sheriff candidate Joe Lozano was recorded saying that Gary Painter used to hang out in these underground homes. Well, Naylor was a sheriff deputy, so he worked for Gary Painter at the time. So, you know, the question's even asked, was Gary Painter under my house when I was shot? Was he there during the oil show parties? You know, Joe Lozano may be able to answer that question. This is one of the secret police pictures. I had already noticed that this guy was wearing a Midland K9 police jacket, and these pictures was timestamped 1/29/2012 at 3:38 in the morning. I was in surgery at that time after being, ambushed and shot, and I'm now crippled for life because of the violent crimes from these criminals that broke into my home. Well, I had this picture of this Midland K9 police officer, but I ain't got no clue who he is for 6 years. And then he gets identified by Empire Prime Investigations of Chad Simpson. And Chad Simpson was a Midland K9 police officer that died in 2014, 2 months after Naylor died, another secret police. Do you see how, something's very strange here. Okay. And I put this in a little order. I served with that protective order here, and we had that in December 2013. The ruling didn't come in until 2014 because that's when we're looking at the cover-up time frame, the same time Naylor and Simpson died. But interesting, I thought this was right here, that we know this was the appeals ruling, that effective September 1st, 2013, the stalking statute was amended to allow harassing behavior to constitute an element of stalking. So in September 2013, they changed the statute to say harassing is part of stalking. And then the next month, they file this protective order on me and say that I'm harassing the ex-wife because I sent 2 non-threatening emails to her in a year and a half period. That's the facts. That's what happened. And and I wrote here, I was not charged with a crime as I did not commit a crime. Okay, this was a protective order hearing. In September 2013, the statute was amended to allow harassing behavior to constitute an element of stalking. In October 2013, the protective order was filed against me, saying that the 2 emails that I'd sent in a year and a half were harassing. Okay, the first one asked her what she knows about my mom's death from the month before the murder attempt. I believe she does know something. And the second email advised her to contact the FBI and contained a copy of the message from her former boyfriend, Arthur Welch, who stated he believes she was involved in the shooting from the things he heard her say and that she threatened to have him killed too. That was read in court. I got a lifetime protective order because of 2 non-threatening emails and took away my right to own guns for life. And I was the victim of a crime, Okay, and here's my next screenshot. This is the picture I took, dated picture on June 29th, 2014. Remember, we're looking at the time frame. That's in front of my house right there. Here's a dark green Jaguar. And this guy, looks like he's in scrubs and a gray head, looks like a doctor to me, And many people think he looks like Dr. Gattiselli, the one that was murdered over in Odessa in 2015. You see that? Well, look at him. Well, look at him, and so it's never been identified who this is in this green Jaguar, but can't be that many green Jaguars around. That's the thing. Somebody knows who that is. And this is the emails I was sending back and forth to my attorneys back in September 2014. And it's a lot showing the time frame, but I want to let you know what was going on. This is the month, this is right there at the same time, the month before Naylor dies. And my attorney, Luke Gunstack, he says, Mr. Webb, no. Didn't you already report the shooting in the police and the district attorney? I don't suspect they'll do anything different now. The officers are all immune per sovereign immunity affirmative decision. So, and I'm like, they sneaked into my home and maybe even shot me by surprise, cut my phone lines, and they're immune? How can that be? I'm not even understanding. But my reply back was to my attorneys in September 5th, 2014. I said, it's very hard to make any sense of this mockery of justice. The facts seem real clear to me. A person who doesn't live in town and haven't talked to in a year and a half files this fraudulent protective order against me on the basis of 2 emails sent in a year and a half, but neither email is threatening in the remotest sense. Sending an email is not a threat in itself. It appears that the contents of the emails were ignored but then used for justification of this ruling. What seemed to be damning evidence was Rosie Rodriguez blatantly perjuring herself in court. That was a Midland sergeant, Rosie Rodriguez, and lifelong friend of the ex-wife. I believe this can be proved. She also lied on police reports, which I believe can be proved. We have pictures of her and other officers sneaking into my home, searching drawers and stealing evidence. A subpoena of the police incident report shows that they were not even at my home. Furthermore, a SWAT team was ordered 3 days later as if they had spent several hours inside my home already. This unidentified group of officers are busted by a camera that they tried to disable but failed. I have the log files to prove this. Now remember, at this time, we didn't even know there was that falsified police report, that was missing the 6 of the 11 officers are not listed on it. 5 officers are at or in my home, and they're not seen arriving on the camera. That report. So I didn't know about that at the time. Rosie Rodriguez and the other identified police officers need to be charged with accessory to capital attempted murder promptly before they hurt other innocent homeowners. That would take out the key witness and her lies, which she's been telling concerning this protective order hearing. We are in possession of irrefutable and undeniable photographic evidence of the cover-up of a capital attempted murder, and Rosie Rodriguez's childhood friend is in those pictures. My medical lab reports compared to the ammunition which was in my gun and now submitted to the sheriff's office proves without a doubt that I was not shot with my gun as falsely stated by the police who were caught sneaking into my home. If I wasn't shot with my gun, then I was shot with another gun, aka capital attempted murder. Somebody loaded their guns and came to my home and shot me by surprise. That's what happened. I think it's in the best interest of my case to submit this hard evidence to law enforcement as well as notify the press. In fact, I thought we would be committing a few crimes without submitting this evidence, such as failure to report a felony and misprision of felony. Previously, we didn't have all this evidence until ordered by the judge in this ruling. Okay, and so that was me talking to my attorneys, is what that was. But I want to show you the time frame of when all of a sudden Naylor Simpson died, and here in time frame September 22nd, 2014. I had been making a point of this coax cable that's behind my house coming down the telephone pole going underground. Okay. And so I checked with Home Depot. They said one theirs, and all the other homes are fed from above ground. And so I'm thinking, that coax cable goes underground to the underground home for internet and phone and cable and all that, and that's where the cable goes. And now it's believed over here in my yard is where one of the 4 underground homes is, right? And so here's this cable. Well, 2 Suddenlink trucks showed up here on this day, September 22nd, 2014. I went out there and talked to them, and they said somebody called in a disconnect notice for this service. Okay, but of course they didn't tell me who. But that's I still to this day I'm thinking that's where that service went. That service went to the underground homes facilities that even multiple people said was here. Even Sheriff candidate Joe Lozano. In that time frame. And then here we are on October 9th, 2014, secret police, second one to show up, Mike Naylor dies in the line of duty, right? And then come to find out the gun that killed him was reported stolen. That was the point I'm making there. And the question's been asked if Naylor wasn't silenced by the other secret police. Was he going to snitch on them, And I think, we've all heard the stories that one good officer snitches on the other officers and his life's in danger, and so just suspicious. Here's this message I ran across this morning from Beetlejuice. That's probably not his real name. 7:24 p.m. It says, "Hey dude, I've been reading, watching some of your posts, and on one post you talk about the police officer that killed his wife and himself. Well, I used to be his neighbor. I lived a couple houses over. The night it happened, I was coming home from out of town. I arrived to police and SWAT. I believe in my yard and on the roof of my house. From my understanding, there was a suspect on the run. Now, I don't know much about what went on, but I remember hearing that they were looking for a person that fled the scene. I first thought it was an affair and the suspect was just the guy that got caught in the act. But after hearing your side of the story, it may be possible there was more to their story, and you might be right about someone tying up a loose end. I just thought I should mention it to you, okay? And so all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, that's real interesting, ain't it? And, of course, that's not what the public was told, but we know what happens there. This is a Facebook post, March 19, 2016, and alleged murder, Chad Simpson. and I'm writing, I said, I just ran across a Facebook message folder called Filtered, which had some message in it which I hadn't seen. One of them was from a guy named Jeff Milford, dated 12/19, probably 15. Who threatened me by saying, if you do not stop this nonsense about Chad Simpson, I will sue you for slander. This is the only post I will send to cease and desist. Of course, I blocked him, But so that tells you that Jeff Milford, whoever that is, was threatening me, and I'm the crime victim, and and wanting to silence me from asking questions about Chad Simpson. Okay, I told you about this a minute ago. Julia Weidman, very nice lady from Dallas-Fort Worth area, drove all the way to Midland. She happens to know things about storm shelters and bunkers and all that. And so she sent me this email November 22nd of last year, 2019. And I asked her, describe me what happened, and she says James Rawl was clearly prepared to tell me about the missing records. Okay, the basis of our conversation was RC 2015, 2018. No. We went on and got the book in another room, and when I brought it up, Fort Worth uses 2018, Midland uses 2018. But according to Rawls, there had been no changes made to that section for 2018, regardless of that. And when I asked him about the permit records for storm shelters in Midland, he, with a smile, told me that all of the permit records prior to 2015 had been destroyed or lost due to attempt to digitize the apartment's records in 2014, 2015. Okay, I asked him twice if he was the gatekeeper for those records, and he answered that he was. And, in other words, there's nowhere else to go but his office, When I brought up the subject of the basement at Home Depot, it clearly unnerved him. But he was downright gloating about those missing records and emphasized a number of times that requests to build storm shelters in Midland would be rare. He kept repeating that as if somebody had told him to keep repeating it. We really don't get requests like that for storm shelters. And well, he was quite a character, animated, and instead of with a matter-of-fact professionalism that one would expect with a conversation as dry as storm shelters. Okay, and so that that was her assessment, and actually speaking with the city employee James Ross, and I looked him up on I googled him, and he used to work for Home Depot, and I thought that was interesting, and a Home Depot employee, I want to show you here that was some of the what I read on the bottom on things that were happening around the time that Naylor Simpson died, like a cover-up was going on. Okay, here, these are from Google Earth. Okay, here's the image date on September 2nd, 2014. And what I'm showing you is that live tree is there on that date. Sudden link disconnect on September 20. I showed you that, remember, a minute ago? So we know the tree was present on that date. Okay, here's my home, and I was shot here on 1/28/12. Okay, now we're going to look at the next one, and it was at 4/28/16. Okay, and the tree's gone. Ain't that interesting? The tree's gone. Okay, tree is there. Tree is gone. So we know the live tree was removed sometime between that time frame. Now, right there at this area is two side-by-side manholes. Also, that telephone pole has the coax that goes underground. The mystery coax is also right there. But right here is the two side-by-side manholes. I suspected a tunnel was going over to them that was providing the underground access to the trucking lane, etc. The lid off one of them manholes was left off for several years. I'd taken a picture of it and sent it to Chief of Police Robinson in 2012. A information request, and will show that I had notified the police of that area right there as a suspected tunnel entrance. And then they took a live tree out. Now, I suspect what happened was they took the tree out because they were doing a cover-up, and what they were covering up, it was tampering with evidence of obstruction of justice in the capital murder attempt on my life, and the murder of the last homeowner, and the murder of the little girl at the Olzo party, the underground homes, and all that. Okay, and so here's the next one, and this shows the other side of the fence where the live tree's missing, and it shows the two side-by-side manholes. You can't really see them there, but they're there. And there's a telephone pole that has the sudden link coax coming down. My home is right on the other side, and I see trucks parked right here. There's no loading dock right there. That's where an open manhole was for several years. And so, anyways, he asked the question about two secret police are dead, and I answered that question with even more. A cover-up was maybe going on in that 2014, 2015 time frame, and it's still going on today. This is Buddy Midland, Texas. Talk to you later. Bye.